Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3. J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Reverend Ryan Baer from the Ridgely Presbyterian Church in Fort Worth. Reverend, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let us pray together. God, we give you thanks and praise for this day that you have created and ordered and blessed. We give you thanks for bringing us safely to this place today. God, we ask your blessing upon this meeting. And I ask that you would pour out your Spirit upon our commissioners, that they would be wise and fair stewards of the gifts that you have given to us. God, I ask that your blessing, especially this day, on all those who wear a uniform who serve us, whether they be in our military or our first responders, police, fire, EMS. God, protect them and guide them in all that they say and do. Be with us this day. We ask this in the name of the one who came not to be served but to serve. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Reverend, for coming out today.
Members of the court, we have several announcements for you this morning. The first announcement is under Human Resources, item 9G2. This concerns the waiver of terminal benefits in Constable Precinct 8. We are going to consider that after close today.
You've been preempted.
Yes, you have.
No one pays attention to this piece anyway. So. Then finally, members of the court, on public health, item 9I7, there's a revised court communication in your folder for you this morning. Also, I want to remind the court that Monday, this coming Monday, we have our budget hearings, which start at 9 o'clock. And now that everyone is looking up at the screen, we're celebrating an anniversary today. It is the 50th anniversary of the 25-year-old Commissioner J.D. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
He did that pretty good.
And I will tell you that his staff has been working on this. We've tried to help them a little bit. And I'm glad to see that we don't have candles on the cake. I'll need to tell Randy Renoir this. He was going to be here with a fire extinguisher, but when we saw how many candles there would be, he's actually got one of our tankers parked on the front, so we're running a water hose up there as we speak.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You know, Commissioner Johnson, I know that obviously you don't look 75 years old. You know,
Keep it up,
I'm trying to dig out of this quicksand real quick, and but you look much younger. So your staff and all of us are very happy that you're here with us, and happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
All right. Okay, somebody got to say
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, J.D. Happy birthday to you.
You look pretty young in some of those
I'm not
pictures.
sure where all these pictures came from. That's a Houston picture.
I kind of like that one where you were riding the elephant. That was before you were riding the elephant.
I like the one in the beard.
Pardon?
The one with the beard.
That was during our centennial out at Saginaw when I was mayor. Well, thank y'all all very much. Oh, yeah.
Come out there and blow out the candle.
Just for the record, the commissioner from Precinct 1 had a birthday on Friday, but my number was substantially lower than
And you might note that the cake is in the shape or is in the format of dominoes, which is certainly appropriate for Commissioner Johnson.
Indeed.
Well, I see my son is here, Jody Johnson.
Jody?
Norm Budosh, yeah.
Norm.
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, we certainly appreciate everything, Commissioner Johnson, that you've done and continue to do for our citizens. So, thank you. What we'll do is after the employee recognition, when we go back there to 504C, we'll let the court go back too, and we'll let Commissioner Johnson maybe cut his cake.
There you go.
We'll do that at that point in time. So, again, congratulations and thank you for your service to the residents of Tarrant County for all these many years. How many years have you been on the court now?
This is my 27th.
So we really appreciate everything that you've done.
Thank you.
That's more than half of my lifetime.
What can I say?
A mere youngster. Court members, you keep that up. Just keep that up. You have before you the regular minutes of our July 30th meeting.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under resolutions and proclamations, the first one that we have is, again, a resolution regarding our 9th annual back-to-school roundup and recognizing Walmart as the sponsor of this 9th annual event. And we have several folks here that are helping with that. But I'm going to read the resolution, and I would ask the folks from Walmart, and I believe I've got stuff all over the place here. So we have Claudia Lehman, Tammy Mollahan, and Jesse Pacheco. Y'all come on forward. Come on up here. And we'll read this resolution, and then I'm going to bring up the other sponsors who have helped with this. If you'll right back over there, and then we'll get you in. I'll come out there in a minute, and we'll go. Whereas the Tarrant Area Food Bank reports that 1 in 5 children in Tarrant County lives in extreme poverty, and many families not only struggle to put food on the table, but also are unable to provide the essential school supplies for their children to start the school year prepared to learn. And whereas 9 years ago, a collaborative effort between Tarrant County and 20 entities, including school districts, municipalities, Tarrant County Public Health Department, private nonprofits, the faith-based communities, and volunteers joined forces to provide to children needed school supplies, immunizations, haircuts, and information on social services through the back-to-school roundup. And whereas through the generosity of corporate and faith-based sponsors, the 9th annual back-to-school roundup, to be held August 7th, 2013 at Will Rogers Memorial Center, will be able to serve 10,000 children in grades K through 12. And whereas in 2012, Walmart and Walmart Foundation gave more than $1 billion in cash and in-kind contributions around the world, including $1 billion in cash and in-kind gifts in the United States and $82 million in cash and in-kind gifts in international markets. And whereas in addition, Walmart, Sam's Club, and Logistics Associates volunteered more than 2.2 million hours, generating $18 million in U.S. nonprofits. And whereas Walmart serves as a model for corporate social responsibility by providing funds and offering free vision and glucose screenings and blood pressure checks to the back-to-school roundup, which directly benefits low-income students and their families in Tarrant County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, commend and recognize Walmart for its exemplary spirit of giving back to the local communities through its generous contributions as presenting sponsor of the back-to-school roundup, in witness whereof we've heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 6th day of August, 2013, and I'll move its approval.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And let me bring the certificate of appreciation and make sure I've got everything else I need, which I'll probably get. With that, I've got Julie to remind me when I do. Really, we cannot tell you how much we appreciate everything y'all do for the community, and especially what you've helped us with in this area with the back to school over the last couple of years. So let's all come on out here and we'll all get into this. There you go. Would y'all like to make, any of y'all like to make any comments?
Let's just say thank you. We're happy to be part of it.
Okay. Now, we've got some other sponsors. We'll get a big sponsor, but if we could also get Cook's Children's Health Plan, Teresa Herbert, and come on forward, and Aaron. Yeah, and come on. It is only going to get worse, and they laugh because it gets worse like this once a month. And Julie, if you'll get the appreciation for that. And then also Ogle School of Hair and Skin, I believe Skin and Nails. We've got Joey, is it Charcone? We all get lucky every once. Blind Squirrel, and it's Vicki Pinion. And then from Madeline, we have Susan Crawford and Tiffany Tisdale. They helped supply some food this morning, I believe, for a little reception. And then from the First United Methodist Church, we have Charlene Burnoff. Okay, now, I tell you what, let's move back behind there and we'll just get one big picture. We'll get a big picture with everybody.
There you go. Move the police.
Thank you all very much for all your efforts. You know, this really is a great effort. It really does. It enables children to be able to go to school that first day and to feel like they're right there with everyone else, and not to be embarrassed if they if they didn't have their supplies. And I remember going. I can actually remember that far back. Can you?
Sure can.
Going to school that first day, and the excitement of going and feeling like I was going to see some old friends, and so they're ready to go to school. And so I, again, want to thank everybody that works in that. Julie Parks and her group out there, and a lot of y'all, a lot of everybody just really helps pull this off each year. We've been doing it for 9 years. We all are excited about that. And the actual event is next week.
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
7 a.m.
And I'll be there.
Are you sure?
I'm sure I'll be there now. So it really is going to be fun, and I hope all of y'all can make it out and we can sweat together. Thank y'all very much for that, and now we'll move on to our employee recognition, which will be my second attempt at messing up names for the day. I appreciate everybody being here. We'll start off with our 5-year employees. When I call your name or facsimile thereof, stand and remain standing until that particular group has finished. Priscilla Akins, Housing, 5-year employee. Here we go. Yeah, see, they're reading these ahead of time. They know what I'm fixing to have to. Kawabana Asari. Oh boy, I hope she's here or he's here so that I can figure out how to pronounce that one. Okay, here we go. Marianne Clifton, Criminal Court number 7. David Cohn, Facilities Management. Can I tell you how much I appreciate David? Lori Crawford, Justice of the Peace, Precinct 7. Marina Cruz, Public Health. Anita Sakaway, Tax Office. Christina Fett, District Court 141st. Welcome. Melissa Martinez, Public Health. Michael McNicholas, Sheriff Confinement. Tanya Mosley, Sheriff Confinement. James Munga, Sheriff Confinement. William Ozzie, Precinct 4. Carada Padilla, Public Health. Sandra Parker, Public Health. Laura Remington, Domestic Relations Office. Dennis Samanigo, Sheriff Confinement. How bad did I butcher that last name? At least he understood it and he was able to stand up. Larry Sams, Sheriff Confinement. Tanya Sabi, Human Services, or probably SEEB. Scott Siebert, Sheriff Patrol. Michael Spence, Juvenile Services. Andrew Strobel, Juvenile Services. And Deborah Vaughn, Sheriff Technical Records. These are our 5-year employees. Let's give them a big hand. Now for our 10-year employees, Joseph Adams, Sheriff Confinement. Adea Argon, Public Health. Matthew Dolan, Sheriff Confinement. Cynthia Fisher, District Clerk. Ronald Huseman, District Attorney's Office. Barbara Johnson, Sheriff Confinement. Joshua Keena, Domestic Relations. Jessica Morgan, Sheriff Confinement. Lakeisha Person, Sheriff Warrants. Jack Roach, Precinct 3. Jesse Salazar, District Attorney's Office. Angela Cervantes, Sheriff Confinement. Sheriff Thornton, Sheriff Technical Communications. Michael Webster, Transportation Services. Melody Wrinkle, Sheriff Confinement. These are our 10-year employees. Let's give them a big hand. Now for our 15-year employees, Dwayne Barrett, Public Health. Karen Beck, Facilities Management. Dixie Bersano, District Attorney's Office. Amanda Key, Transportation Services. Kenesha King, Elections. Guadalupe Martinez, Juvenile Services. Delsa Perez, County Clerk. Michelle Say, County Criminal Court number 4. Shelley Townsend, Tax Office. and Rose Young, Public Health. These are our 15-year employees. Now for our 20-year employees, Shelley Abels, Justice of the Peace, Precinct 6. Travis Baker, Information Technology. Tommy Cox, County Clerk's Office. Robert Faust, Sheriff Warrants. Wanda McCarthy, Sheriff Bailiff. Martin McCrary, Information Technology. Mary McWright, Sheriff Bailiff. Michelle Moore, County Clerk. Lisa Morton, the 396th District Court. Brian Nicholson, Sheriff Bailiff. Pamela Powell, County Clerk. Alton Radford, Sheriff Confinement. Jerry Rucker, Sheriff Technical Records. Carl Todd, Sheriff Confinement. And Laura Watts, Sheriff Warrants. These are our 20-year employees. Let's give them a hand. And then for our 25-year plus, we just have one this month. Maria Lara from the District Clerk's Office. There's Maria. Started in the District Clerk's area as a part-time file clerk and is now in a position, I guess they call it the lead clerk position now. When I asked her about the more memorable moments, she said it was kind of watching the downtown area change, and that's continued to do that over the last 5 years. We talked, at the 20-year mark, and then again yesterday. She said, the security and the benefits that the county offers, and the fact that really she's always busy and has plenty to do. She enjoys working with the judges, especially those in the criminal section where she works. When I asked her kind of what had happened over the last 5 years, she said, well, her children are continuing to grow up. She's got one that's about to graduate from high school and another that is in middle school. And she said, it just seems like yesterday that we talked about her 20-year anniversary with the county. And she said, as I've watched over the years and I think back of when I first started and the technology that we've had and the way that's come in, she said, it's hard for me to understand now how we did everything without the technology and the advances and how much, the technology advancements have helped in doing the work. She said, I still am having fun and still very much enjoy my job. And Maria, we appreciate very much the 25 years you've given us. Thank you. Now with that, we're going to recess briefly to go back to 504C for pictures, for cookies, and for Commissioner Johnson to cut his 75-year-old cake.
75-year-old.
We hope the cake's not that old, even though you may be. So
I can't promise.
we'll just recess briefly.
75.
because I guess you can be.
I'd like to.
Commissioner Brooks, I believe you had announcements you wanted to make.
Yes, indeed. I just want the court and the general public to know that our esteemed county clerk and I are cutting the ribbon on Friday at a new county clerk facility in the Miller Avenue Government Center. That will be this coming Friday morning at 10 a.m., and the public is invited. It will bring an entirely new array of services to that sub-courthouse and to that community. And Mary Louise, if you'd like to come up and say what those services are, I would appreciate it. I know there is vital statistics and records, but there are so many others.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Yes, we are excited to open up the Miller Avenue. We had an opportunity when I first came on board to offer those services, and finally, after some finagling with the court, no, just kidding, we're able to do that. We will have marriage and birth certificate licenses available. We really believe it is going to help that community who we find tends to come downtown and do business with us. So you will be able to come in and get those services of marriage and birth certificates there, and we look forward to it. And the ribbon cutting will be at 10 o'clock. We encourage everybody to be there. We've reached out to Public Health and all the other entities and partners we have in Tarrant County. So we look forward to that, and thank you for giving us this opportunity, and we'll see you all at 10 o'clock. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Debbie. We were able to sit on a couple of positions, and in our office, that's kind of our philosophy. When people retire, we hold those positions. We don't fill them to see if other needs come up, and we were able to fund this particular project without adding any additional positions. So thank you for that. We appreciate good government around here, obviously.
Could you show Tom Wilder how to do that?
Yeah.
Just go.
No comment. Thank you, Commissioner Brooks.
I just wanted to point out that the major delay in getting this done was that we had to build out the space, and we had to find the money in various budgets to do that building renovation. So thank you, Debbie. Thank you to the court for your support in getting this done.
Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have a public hearing today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're requesting that the Commissioners Court conduct a public hearing to consider Amendment Number 1 to the program year 2013. The amendment consists of the project in the city of North Richland Hills. We're changing it to street reconstruction with new sidewalk installation in the 5100 block of Jennings Drive and the 8300 block of Dude Court, using a total of $429,570.18. We're changing the project due to the fact that the city had a remaining balance of $121,601.49 from last year's project. In order to expand their project, they're requesting that we change it, the scope, services. It's going from a water line replacement to street reconstruction with the installation of sidewalks. There's no action today, just to receive public input.
At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing, and since there is no action at this time, do you have any questions, court members? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have one additional item this morning. We're requesting that the court approve the tax-exempt financing facilitated by the Arlington Higher Education Finance Corporation, the maximum amount of $35 million for Trinity Basin Preparatory for certain educational facilities located in Tarrant County. What this is that these bonds have been issued, but in order for them to be expended in Tarrant County, we need to have the approval of the Commissioner's Court. What the facility that we're talking about is the Immaculate Heart of Mary Catholic Church that's located on, I guess it's Pafford Street, and it's refinancing of previously issued bonds, and then they're going to make some improvements on that site.
To a school facility related to the church.
Yes, sir.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Tidwell? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have one item for the court's consideration this morning, and that is to receive and file the quarterly investment report related to the period ended June 30th. I would simply point out that we've certainly been looking at our investment policy and the fact that interest rates remain low. The pools remain almost to the point where at some point I fear they'd be asking me to pay them to hold my money. It was 0.04 basis points a few days ago. We did work with Chase after after the court awarded the new depository agreement. I've been working with Chase, and as of today, we've moved $150 million of the county's funds into the Chase savings account that's paying the 30 basis points, and we'll continue to leave that there as we work on our investment policy and our decisions. My plan at this point is I'd like to speak with each individual court member and with the court have discussions as a whole about at some point rates will start to rise, and if we go out longer term, then if we needed those funds, we of course could be subject to a loss of principal to actually liquidate those funds. The rates are still really low. You have to go out 2 years to get 40 basis points. You have to go out, to get over 1%, you have to go out at least over 3 years to get 1% in interest, which is a long time for us, the way we typically use our money. But just wanted to put it on your radar that I would like to have some dialogue and have you give me your input on what your thoughts are on how we move forward. We've had several individuals contacting us that think we should be buying different things possibly through them. But regardless of that, we want to make sure that we're doing the best job we can with the county's funds, but still being conservative and moving forward. So anyway, with that said, we appreciate Chase working with us and our ability to move a pretty significant amount of money over there and earn the 30 basis points.
Is that $150 million fully secured?
Yes. Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Phillips.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
It
morning.
is requested that Commissioners Court approve a real estate listing agreement with Jones, Lang & Saul Brokerage to sell the Tarrant County Mansfield Correctional Facility located at 651 Justice Lane in Mansfield, Texas.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item, as Mr. Maney has mentioned earlier, we're going to hold until after close. The third item, we were prepared to ask the court to approve IT's reorg. We've been asked to hold that for 1 week. And certainly if the court has no objection, HR is fine with it being held for a week.
Okay. We held it 1 week last week.
I'm the one who asked that it be held for 1 week. I've got some questions.
Okay.
The overall framework of the organization I support, but the devil is in the details, and I've got a couple of questions that I need answered before I am prepared to go forward.
Now, after we approve this, then at that point in time, everything goes to job evaluations, and all the different positions will be evaluated at that
Correct.
point in time.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll
And we're
hold it
good
for a
as
week.
far as that's
We're good.
concerned. Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Your Honor, other members of the court, we have 5 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2013-083 for the Tarrant County Data Center HVAC upgrades, Phase 1. Recommendation would be toward the low bidder, the BIT Group, the amount of $904,249. If approved, we're seeking contract approval, acceptance of the payment, and the performance bond.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Have you fully vetted this company? Do we know who they are?
Have we checked them out?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is also a bid award recommendation for RFP 2013-098 for drug and alcohol laboratory confirmation testing for CSCD. A recommendation would be to award per the contract terms, awarding Section 1, the urine testing, to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique, and the oral fluid testing to the primary vendor as shown in your court communique.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 3 item is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-102. This is our annual contract for inmate uniforms. The recommendation would be to award a per enterprise basis to the primary and secondary vendors meeting all specifications, selecting Robinson Textile as our primary vendor and Uniforms Manufacturing, Inc. as our secondary vendor.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-107, our annual contract for toilet paper. Our recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding as our primary vendor Master Cleaning Supply, as our secondary vendor Empire Paper Company.
No samples this year?
I'm a little hesitant.
Funny that you'd ask.
to take any action on this with,
Mr. Manius asked to guard them for us.
You just had to do it, Judge, didn't you?
That's not the kind we see in our offices. We see big rolls, and they're not near that wide either.
This is a smaller version of a big roll.
No, it's not.
what account are you charging this to?
I don't know why he got 2. Maybe he's a little bit more full of it.
Happy birthday.
Move approval. Not going to ask.
The ones that in our are about that wide as opposed to that wide. So this is not a fair representation of what you bring us.
Our last item is
No. You're not running this show. We have a motion. Did you get a second?
No.
See, we don't have a motion or a second.
I'll second.
I don't know if we should do this without Commissioner Fickus here.
Well, he's the one that always wants the samples.
Yeah.
Do we have we have a motion? Do we have a motion and a second now? Okay, since we have a motion and a second, and we have all contributed to the discussion, please vote. Motion. Oh, I was going to say motion. Fickus abstain. Motion passes unanimously.
our last item.
Go right ahead, Jack.
Is an item in regards to bid 2013-081. This is an annual contract for hair testing supplies and laboratory confirmation for CSCD. We received 4 bids. There were problems with all 4. The low bidder did not meet the specifications. Bidders 2 and 3 changed or tried to change the term length of the contract. And the 4th bidder that responded did not include the required DPS accreditation letter. So we're asking to reject all bids and allowing us to rebid with revised specifications.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reject all bids. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Ms. Green, do not remove the sample from.
Your Honor, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the conveyance of various properties previously purchased by Tarrant County for the 1949 Trinity River Flood Control Project, conveying them to the Tarrant Regional Water District as required for the Trinity River Vision Project located in Precinct 1. These various properties are attached to the deed without warranty and resolution, which we're asking you all to approve in this conveyance. And this is only the surface estate. It does not include conveyance of the minerals.
You anticipated my question, so that takes care of one of the questions.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Are there any appointments?
In the essence of full disclosure, I sit on the Trinity River Vision Board, but there's no personal gain in this deal. There's no personal gain in this deal.
Right.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Personal gain to the county?
To me.
To you?
He was just giving.
I'm just
Absolutely
acting
not.
in my official capacity.
Now, this is strictly for the Trinity River Vision Project, and TRWD has been maintaining these properties since 1941, but the Corps has determined that they want all of the properties in the name of Trinity River, in the name of the Water District, in order for them to certify the project to move forward.
Okay. Are there any appointments today? Being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move for the approval of the claims and the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manias?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several items to bring to you this morning. The first is an update on the West Nile virus. Dr. Parker is here to address the Court.
Good morning, Dr. Parker, and congratulations on your 5 years.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to let you all know that we tested 160 mosquito samples were submitted and tested to our laboratory last week. One specimen did test positive, and that was in the community of White Settlement, and they'll be meeting to discuss this issue tonight during their regular session to determine what further course of action they may be taking. Also, we still have only had one human case in Tarrant County for the season, and that was much earlier in the year, back in June. And that's all I have for today, unless you have any questions.
The reports keep showing that y'all are sending out to us that y'all are spraying in the unincorporated area.
No, what it just lists the dates that we have sprayed in the unincorporated areas throughout this season.
What unincorporated areas are you spraying?
Those areas were in Precinct 2, I believe. There was one much earlier in the year. And then I actually believe that we did spray in Precinct 4 earlier. I don't have that information in front of me on all of those zones. But, oh, I'm sorry, David Jefferson is here. He can give you that information.
Afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You had questions about what areas have been sprayed?
Mm-hmm.
We have sprayed down in the Brandon area, close to the cemetery. That's basically Precinct 1, but it's right on the edge of Precinct 2. We've also sprayed in 2 or 3 areas up along the edge of where Precinct 3 and Precinct 4 come together. Harborview Estates is one area we've sprayed right in that area. We've also sprayed a little further up to 87. I can't give you the exact specific locations without a map to draw them out, but we've done some in Precinct 4, some in Precinct 3, and Precinct 1. Precinct 2 is the only one we haven't sprayed directly in.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Parker.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank David for clarifying that. I'm sorry I did not realize that it was on the edge of the precinct. So, thank you.
Members of the court, we can go to item B. This is an update. Mr. Jones?
Oh, you didn't try to pronounce it this week, huh? You just thought you'd slip right over that one.
How do you pronounce it?
Cyclosporesis.
That's good enough. We'd understand it.
Perfect.
If they were on their 5-year tenure, they would be standing up. So. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a quick update on the cyclosporesis.
Standing up for more reasons than that.
As of yesterday, Texas is reporting 157 cases associated with the outbreak that's been going on in a multitude of states. Iowa and Nebraska have been leading it with the most cases up until recently. 157 there, 118 in the region that the state health department calls it North Texas. Tarrant County has 34, and that number has pretty well stayed stable the last couple of days. I do anticipate getting a few more reports in. So far in Texas, there's been 10 hospitalizations. At least one Tarrant County resident has been hospitalized with it. If you've watched the news, they identified, the FDA released some traceback information about produce distributors who may have distributed the product that was contaminated. We don't know yet how that's connected to Texas. They informed us yesterday they're now doing their trace forward to see what products that distributor has that may have come to Texas. It's important because the peak in Iowa and Nebraska who saw it first was around June 20th for onset dates. Our onset date, the median, is more like July 2nd. So it's about 12 days later. That would indicate possibly the food chain, it was a little later coming to us. And so far, the peak is up and it's down. We're just getting stragglers in, and they're all going back to that onset. And having said that, knock on wood, we don't have a second wave.
Thank you very much.
So the disease has peaked, and we're headed back down to normal levels.
We've headed back down, and our last onset here in Tarrant was July 17th. We heard on the state call that the last onset in the state was July 23rd, which is kind of late. But you'll get a few of those that tend to straggle in later. And it may be because the product has now moved through the distribution center system. The concern is if it's continuing, we may get another round of it, and that's where FDA comes in trying to find it.
So all we can do is wait for the product, the suspected product, to move through the system. There's no prevention there are no prevention measures we can take.
On the regulatory side, the FDA, or even if the state suspects it's in a particular distribution place, they can actually order it withheld, withdrawn, recalled. But because of the way the peak has moved through, they're thinking it's already gone through the system. As far as prevention as individuals, what you and I can do is just wash our fruits and vegetables very well. And that doesn't eliminate the risk, but it will reduce the chances of you getting it.
Describe washing them very well. What does that mean?
That's a hard question.
Not with soap.
So there's actually a vegetable soap you can use.
Is there?
So yeah, that's edible. That you can use that. Some people just do it in water, tepid water. You rinse it real well, drain it. Other people like to use maybe say a cap full of vinegar in a bowl of water to help clean it a bit. But you're right, you don't use a detergent that would soap up. And then drain it. Some people like to use a salad spinner to dry it a bit. But the idea is to get that water on there and see if you can't wash off the spores that are the problem. Does that help?
Yes, sir. It does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the court, we can go to item C. This concerns the compensation and benefits survey. Andrew, you going to lay this out? Anne's going to come address this initially.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are here this morning to present the results of the compensation and benefits study that was conducted by the Hay Group. You may recall that Hay has been conducting this survey for us for multiple years now. The last time we conducted this study was in 2008 for fiscal year 2009.
Hold that thought.
Did you trip him?
Maybe I should have handed them out.
Did I get all of these or just one?
You got a good hold on that?
I will do it. Thank you, GK.
That's okay. So the last study was conducted in 2008. That was for fiscal year 2009. So we are glad that we have conducted the study again this year. And without further ado, I'll introduce Paul Glogowski from the Hay Group, and he'll go through the results of the survey.
Morning, Paul.
I tell you that GK will help you with that, but I'm not sure at this point in time if you want GK to help you with that.
I'm glad you made that comment. I was going to say something about holding material must not be in his job description.
It was all complimentary. Don't
Complimentary.
Isn't he a consultant?
Yes.
It was.
I have that title. Good morning, Commissioners, Judge.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Members of the court and attendees. You have material in front of you. Some of this material, most of this material you have seen prior to this. A lot of the material that was analysis that was conducted was completed several months ago. The court asked us to do maybe a little bit additional analysis, and we spent a little bit more time on some law enforcement analysis here near the end, which is why we're now just presenting here on August the 6th. So the challenge in this presentation is one of how much information do we want to share, because we could probably stay up here for a very long time. And given birthdays and things like that, I doubt that that's on the agenda and other things. So I will try to move through as quick as you would like me to. Stop when you would want me to ask questions, obviously. We have a series, it's a rather large deck, but a lot of it is near the back, which is a lot of charts that we typically could talk about, but they're in there for your review if you need. I did not plan on referring to them again unless you specifically wanted me to do so. There are other documents that have been put together that are less, what I would say, presentation materials. So there's a very detailed analysis that was provided to HR on the comp side. There was a very detailed report done on the benefit side. Additional items done on the law enforcement study that we did. And so we're trying to kind of condense and consolidate here for the presentation. So the page numbers on here are ridiculous. Page 2, what'd you ask us to do? You asked us this year to look at the cash compensation, which historically is how Work with Hay got started, probably 10 to 15 years ago. We were asked to do a review of your benefit programs, which we had done once previously. And I think it was in 2008 as well. We have the ability to package the results of both the cash findings and the benefit findings in a way where we could put a cash value equivalent on your benefits, no matter the type of benefit that you offer. Couple those together and give you a sense of, if you took cash and benefits and put them together, you know, where does Tarrant County stand up against the market? We've done that, and we've also, as I previously mentioned, we're asked to do maybe some additional work this year in law enforcement, which I'll cover when we get to that particular section. This is kind of the very much Reader's Digest version. Slide 4, I believe, of the overall findings, very, very high level. As a kind of a reminder, I guess, for some of the newer court members, we make references to different parts, different competitive levels. Typically in compensation, we refer to things as median or P50 of the market. We refer a lot of things for the Tarrant County presentation to this thing called P25 of the market. It historically has been the position of which the county has closest tracked to and generally has targeted. We would like to achieve pay at about the 25th percentile if fiscally possible.
About what?
Pardon?
Say again.
Well, historically, you've made decisions that have reflected we'd like to pay people in the county at least at this 25th percentile level if we can fiscally, pay for that achievement. So we do make references in here a lot to the P25. We make some references to the 50th percentile, just more as a frame of reference.
And when you refer to P25 of the market, that market is industry, private sector, that's everybody.
Yeah, page 5 gives you a little brief on that based on the policy group. But in general, other than law enforcement, it is a representation of both public and private sector organizations.
And so, again, I think that from our standpoint and our philosophy, what that says is that if we're at P25, then that says that 75% of the entities are paying higher for that particular position than we are from a Tarrant County standpoint.
Correct.
And one of the things that I think we've looked at, and that's part, if we look at the overall package, and from a standpoint of there's so much emphasis placed on, what a great retirement benefit we may have. The way I've kind of looked at this and felt about this is we pay lower, but as a result, we're able to take a portion of what we would have otherwise paid in compensation and enhance our retirement benefit. So what we're doing is we're paying what we consider to be at least a target level wage, but at the same time we're hoping to, at the end of their time with Tarrant County and when they get ready to retire, that we will also have helped them saved and be at a good retirement age and a good retirement benefit level.
Cool.
And we'll see that later on when we talk about where our retirement benefit is.
Yeah, we will go ahead.
I'd just like to add that it's not just in the retirement benefit area that we've had an advantage over the private sector. It's been in total benefits, especially health care benefits. And those are beginning to erode as the Patient Protection Act comes online. So it is my fear that our competitive edge against the private sector is going to shrink. And people are going to, since our benefits package will no longer be as valuable as it has been, that will be a disincentive for people to spend their entire careers, or a good part of it, here in Tarrant County. And that concerns me greatly.
I mean, I think we've talked about this kind of phenomenon for many years, and I think in working with other public sector clients, the challenge becomes, well, how can we do that? So you're right. If you look at your benefits, we will talk about it. The two leading factors that create a benefits package as healthy as it is at Tarrant County are both a combination of the current health care plan and the current retirement setup. Right. And that, yes, the winds are changing a little bit, and it will put pressure on public sector, as along with other people, to say if that was our competitive advantage for retaining people, and if that is eroded on a relative basis, what can we do, if anything? And that
is the question.
And when you have your, looking at the financial aspect of the business,
Well, one of the things that
how
we
you
can
do it,
do
so.
is to ask President Obama to exempt us from the requirement. That's one of the things that we can do,
Possible, yeah.
right?
Good luck.
The federal
Possible.
government,
Good luck with that.
the federal government employees are exempted from it. The Congress members are
Yep.
exempted from it,
Yep.
so.
It's a challenge. How about that? Right. Okay. So you're tracking about how you were tracking in '08, particularly on the cash side, against the 50th percentile and against the 25th percentile. You made a little bit of improvement here or there. We break it down into these different groups: exempt employees, non-exempt employees, craft employees, law enforcement employees. So these are very broad general statements. But in general, the summary of what we're recommending, at least for the excluding the law enforcement, just as a set of recommendations, is that for all the groups excluding law enforcement, you try to create a budget for about 3.5% for your, I forgot what you label it, we just call it merit. There's an acronym, Robin? Merit. Okay, there you go. And a 2% structure for those groups.
So in effect, what you're saying is that we'd be looking at a 3.5. At the same time, we would be looking at taking all of our structure ceilings up 2%.
That's the recommendation.
So it's not a
that's being made.
5.5. It's basically
That's correct.
we're going to move the structures up so somebody who's at max right now could potentially get 2, versus if they're below that. What are you grinning?
Are we proposing to move the ceiling or the floor on the
Both.
structure?
When we say structure, we typically say move the whole structure.
The whole
So
structure.
if you have a minimum, midpoint, max, generally you'd say move those 2% at each point.
Okay.
I just wanted to address
While
what's
you're
actually
grinning.
in the budget is, right now, there's a 3% combination merit structure pool, which means that the structures will move up by 3%. And that 3% merit, because we calculated off of 12 months, but awarded off of 9 months, it's worth about 3.7%. So that's well within the recommendation of what Hay has provided.
So you're taking advantage of kind of a cash flow,
Is,
in my mind, which is
is
fine.
that 3% merit, is that the average, or is that the?
Yes, sir, that 3%
So it's a
merit.
6% pool.
Typically, we have from a 0 to 6%. Obviously, for some people to get 6%, someone might have to have slightly less.
Of course.
Okay. That set of recommendations is based on all the charts that are in the back of your, that say, in general, those groups, in general, and there are spots where you couldn't say that, are tracking relatively close to the 25th percentile. Okay, there's a few exceptions here or there within those groups, kind of anomalies that we've discussed with HR. We can get into them if we want to today. I didn't know if that was the time for that. But in general, these are, recommendations that we've basically kind of made over the past years, because the output for that relative to market for those groups is relatively the same, with maybe a slight improvement in some areas. So you've maintained your position, even though we haven't done the study since 2008 on the cash side. And there are some spot exceptions. The difference here of this year is a couple things on law enforcement. We will have a separate section in this report. But in general, we're recommending a different structure where there are quite a few changes to that new structure, with the goal of trying to align that better to the 25th percentile than the current structure is aligned. We'll show you that structure near the end and talk about the pros and cons of that, and I think HR might want to actually make some comments about that particular effort also. A lot of words on a page here. It kind of summarizes now that executive summary and looks at every group. It makes some broad statements about every group. It provides you some costing based on the recommendations being made by Hay on what kind of money would be allocated to which group. The law enforcement is a relatively large number. It is a good size. It's a large group, and it's probably the ones that are seeing the most difference in structure versus the other groups based on our recommendations.
Now, when you make these comparisons,
yes, sir,
you looked at position by position. and seniority by seniority, apple to apple. Am I correct?
I will say not necessarily seniority to seniority, but apple to apple, I would agree with that kind of comment.
Because most governmental compensation system is based on a seniority level. So if all employees' total seniority level is less than other entities, then that's not a good comparison.
I'll try to address that, okay? So the first thing, the foundation is that you use, that Tarrant County uses a methodology that assesses the requirements, skill level, accountabilities, duties, and responsibilities of every job in the county, and they have a way to score it. It's the Hay methodology. So they can say, well, we might not be able to find an exact job like Robin's, in the exact same job. We know that Robin's job has been evaluated at some point level, whatever that is. Now we can go out into the database of all our 2,000 plus clients that do the same thing and say, what are jobs paid in the market that have similar point levels? They may be supervisors in a huge company. They may be managers in a medium-sized company. I'm going backwards. Yeah, managers in a medium-sized company, directors in a large company. So that's the way to calibrate the apples to apples. So when you say job to job, I always want to make sure we're doing it on a very common methodology, so we can compare to different industries. We can compare to public sector, private sector, and we all bring it to a common denominator. Okay. Now, when the databases are large enough, we are going to have databases that have brand new people in it. Maybe brand new in the job. We're going to have 5-year people in the job, 10-year people in the job. And when you have 1.5 million incumbents in your database, and we're targeting these percentiles, it somewhat says it's big enough not to worry about the tenure of the population. We're looking at competent people performing the job. So I think we talked about this last year, Commissioner. I think there could be an argument made that your tenure for people in Tarrant County is longer than the average tenure in the market. It's a possibility. Gathering tenure data from 1.4 million incumbents is a task that in the compensation world nobody has been willing to want to do. It's a nightmare for people to take in that data. So while it'd be great to be able to do, I do think you have to take that piece of information as another piece of information when you make decisions about where do we want to pay people. Just like our financial ability to pay people. Just like we believe we have outstanding benefits. So, you're using pieces of information gathered in the best way we know how to gather it, not just, don't say we, to help you make a judgment about, well, where should we pay? And historically, the court has said, if we can pay at the 25th, and we can fund that, and we can continue to have solid benefits, we feel like, and all the other things we offer, we feel like we have our ability to attract and retain people. So it's information, it's not necessarily the answer. Is that okay? And if we want to do I'll stay afterwards. If we'd like to talk some more, I'd be more than happy.
The total number of employees you have under that employee column on that page is about 38, almost 3,900. Where are the rest of our employees?
This was a snapshot probably back in January when we did it.
I don't know if we've added that. How many employees do we have?
It doesn't include any of our unclassified people, elected officials.
DA's office?
No, it has the DA's office. CSCD is not included in there.
Yeah, but we don't include, they're not in that 4,200 number, are they? So what I'm saying is you're missing, at 4,200, you're missing about 350.
That'd probably be all of our unclassified and elected officials. That'd probably be about that.
And who are unclassified again?
Our court coordinators, our court reporters, our county auditor, some of our DA employees, our purchasing agent. some of those types of juvenile services.
Okay.
director.
Your senior managers in your individual departments.
No, they're civil service.
But
They're exempt, and I bet they're under the,
there's two different things.
well, you're saying, you two are saying one thing, and Robin is saying
And
another.
unclassified doesn't necessarily always mean that they're not civil service. We do have some civil service positions that are unclassified. Most of the senior department heads are in the management structure.
I'm talking about senior managers and the commissioners and the judges.
Oh, yes, that is correct. Those
Okay.
individuals, the precinct, the garage supervisor.
Okay.
Glad I wasn't expected to know that. Benefits review, again, high level. A lot of documents presented are on file with HR that go into greater detail. These are kind of the highlights on page 7, talking about some of the things that are maybe better than the market, some of the things that maybe you could tolerate some improvement. The healthcare program was pointed out. We know that you've been engaging with other consultants around your healthcare. Your current program is above market. Most of that, or much of that, it was tied to your sharing of costs with the employee and some of your deductibles. Your death benefit's a little bit low. I'm going to have a chart on this coming up. Your disability program is okay, but it does leave a gap for your shorter tenured workers, which we'd make a recommendation later in a couple slides that maybe you might want to address.
Now, let me ask a question. The Commissioner Brooks talked about the potential negative impact of the new health care law. Doesn't that impact affect everybody, the whole market?
Yes.
So it should water down the benefit of the other group as well,
So
not just
then-
us.
So
So therefore, we should remain competitive in
Yeah,
terms.
but if they're paying more cash than we are, and our hook is the benefits package, then the disparity becomes wider as our benefits package becomes less competitive.
or becomes more like everybody
Or
else's.
More like everybody else.
Okay, so their benefit package is also
We'll
watered
reduce
out
to
as
kind
well,
of
right?
we'll reduce to a similarly watered down benefit.
But I think as we're doing that, they're going to also be doing it even more.
Yeah, but they pay more.
Well, but what I'm saying is, we may stay as competitive in this area, in this particular benefit, because I anticipate that as we make changes, they're going to be making changes too. So it's something that we can speculate on, but until it's actually happened and we actually see it, I'm not sure we can anticipate it, because, one of the things we're looking at right now in the 2018 is we're being told that we're likely to have to make a $5 million payment because of the richness of our plan. There are other plans out there that are going to be of a similar notion. Richness, and they may very well be trying to move their plan down so as not to pay that tax at the same time that we are, so our benefit may continue to be.
I think it actually, well, we're going to pontificate a little bit here, but I think it actually becomes a philosophical decision for the court, as funds will always, I would imagine, funds, new dollars that we find, are always going to be a resource that is somewhat limited, unless we found it, unless we hit gold or something like, strike oil or something. And when I have a limited resource to spend, where do I choose to spend it? I could try to maintain the culture and the pride of Tarrant County by trying to maintain some little bit higher level of benefits for my employees, because they seem to value that. History says it appears to have helped my ability to retain people. So I think your choices are going to be, where do we spend the limited resource we have, and what's best for the county? And it could be to continue to try to find ways to make your benefit package more attractive than other people's benefits package as the watering down effect takes place. Or it could be, let's just water it down all the way and put cash on it. That would be a change in philosophy. And it might actually, even though it sounds good, it might diminish your ability to attract and retain. It becomes a decision that It's not necessarily numbers only driven.
Right.
Right, okay, certainly we could all guess on what's going to happen. Page 8 simply takes some of the key benefit programs, total benefits, health care, retirement, death, disability, other. It makes a generalized comment that if you took that single feature and had to say where in the market is that particular plan, is it at or above some reference point in the market? So it shows that your health care plan is tracking very competitively. Your retirement plan is tracking very competitively. You fall a little bit behind on death and disability and some other programs, maybe at market. And even with the richness of some of those, we're saying total benefits are still coming out around the market. Now, good news is you've gotten there by having attractive benefits on probably the two most key benefits that people look at, which are health care and retirement. And the fact that you have a disability plan or a death plan that's slightly under market probably isn't a huge issue unless you feel like that's something you want to address.
Unless you die or you're disabled.
Pardon?
Unless you die or you're disabled.
Yeah, unless you die or disabled. So don't. Don't die or don't get disabled, right? The next 3 pages are some recommendations that you had seen previously in terms of the 3 areas, one being the health care plan, which you are clearly aware of, particularly our comment at the down at the bottom of the page. We made some recommendations around some general changes to consider. I believe Robin's coming up.
No, I'm going to tell you.
Oh. Oh, hello. Am I supposed to move that at the same time? Yeah, I'm sorry. Everybody has a copy, I thought.
Everybody except for all those people behind you.
I'm very sorry. I apologize. Can't do
People
two
are now
things at
looking
once.
at you like,
Just look
"We
at the
don't have
last 3.
copies."
Just look at the last 3 letters of my name, and you'll understand why I'm having challenges with that, as people would say where I grew up. So the some co-insurance changes and deductible changes to the plan are something to consider to kind of reshift the cost there and take the plan design down a little bit. We know you're considering more than that. Page 10, this has to do with the life and AD&D. Maybe change your maximums up a little bit. This typically isn't a high-cost item, but it provides some more satisfactory coverage for many of your employees. And then on the disability program, we're talking about, thinking about a transition away from sick leave only and introduce maybe even an employee-paid short-term disability program. Total remuneration. There are, again, some charts that maybe do a better visual at the back, but we took each of the groups and said, if you combine the 2 together, where are you following? You do raise your position up slightly. So if you only looked at cash, you might be hovering at or below the 25th. But when you introduce the benefits, you're at or above the 25th. It is not taking you to the 50th percentile of the market for total remuneration, which this court has never said, and I'm not suggesting you try to do that. It would simply say that you're not being able to do that right now through just a nice, attractive benefits program. Law enforcement. So some effort was put in law enforcement this year at a little bit greater extent in the past from a couple different perspectives. One, we've had a couple of meetings with the Law Enforcement Association, some early on in the process to try to better understand their specific issues and concerns about the current structure that is in place today. They participated with us in a modest redesign to the survey itself. So we expanded the survey content. They were allowed and gave us great information, edits, if you will, on that survey instrument. They helped us solicit participation in these surveys. While this is all public record, we would much rather take a more collegial approach to try to get that information from the other cities and counties. So they helped a great deal there. From all that, we took in. We then met with them, although it was late in the game, I'll admit, late last week, and put some recommendations in front of them, of which they've reviewed along from the structure perspective. And I think there's going to be some discussion about that in a little bit. We're going to, just on page 16, it's a lot of numbers on a piece of paper, but it's the structure, one of many structures that alternatives that we looked at. So the process was going back and looking at market data, looking at the current structure, looking at progressions in the plan in terms of moving from one grade to another, looking at market data, as I said, and we constructed probably 10 or so different kind of ways to do this. We picked about 3 for the HR department to look at. They felt as though one of those 3 was close to what maybe they could see as something that was workable. We modified that slightly, and this is the structure that we are recommending with some consideration with HR.
Robin tells me we're going to talk about this in a few minutes.
Just our approach on this in terms of what we see as the benefit to this. I think there's many ways you can analyze this. One of our key things that we did is we laid this structure out versus the old structure. And while financially you could not do this in year 1, we said, as an example, if a person in the law enforcement structure in the old, I'm picking something, okay, in the old 53D, what was that rate? And if we moved them to 53D of the new schedule, and we did that for everybody, the cost would be a little bit above $9 million on a $65 million payroll. So it told us, and to a certain extent, if we tried to do that, the old structure was richer, obviously, than the new structure richer than the old structure. We looked at this from when you move from one level to another. The old structure, you might be moving from the top, maybe the top step of one grade to nearly the top step of the next grade, and then you top out in a short order. We created a plan that basically increased those steps for someone as they got in that new, lieutenant job, as an example, before they topped out. We took the philosophy of taking the market data and, as best as possible, because we asked the question in the survey, what is your starting rate? So we ask a lot of questions around structure. We ask a lot of questions around average pay, but we also ask questions around what's your starting rate. So we tried to establish as best as possible the responses back from the participants and set the starting rate at around the 25th percentile at step A. Okay. The starting rate was varied, or the step varied in the current plan, depending on the grade you're in, but many of the steps started at C, some started at D, if I recall.
And then you had 6 months. And didn't some of the steps from this, you started and then 6 months later you were in the confinement area?
We eliminated that this year.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's gone, so it's now everybody enters at an A level, and then it's a year.
It'd be 1 year. The way we looked at it, we recommended a year. And on this particular structure, something different than the current structure is we created in this recommendation the step increase from A to B, B to C, D to E, all the way through is about 3%. So per step. The old plan had some larger up front, skewed at the back end. Not necessarily anything wrong with that. We just took a little bit different. We took a perspective on that likely this structure will increase over time as other rates year after year in the market go up, and that if this plan has lengthened the time to top out, which it has for many people, a lot of people, if you can afford it and the structure moves, 3% step, 2% structure, So a 5% kind of increase for a period of time is a pretty nice progression through this plan.
If, it looks like in most of the ones, for example, if you're at the 56th level and you were to be promoted to the 57, to grade 57, in most instances, the top of one level is about a little bit in excess of 6 years at the next level up.
Yeah.
So when someone goes from the 56 to the 57, if they were promoted, and I don't even know if that would be one that would fit, but would they end up going into that step that was the 7-year, which would represent a 5%, about a 5% promotion? So they would be slotted into there, and then in 3 years, they'd be at the maximum again, with the only possible increase at that point would be the 2% structure, and then whatever was left in the form of a lump sum in that particular year.
Yeah, one of the, I mean, when we met with law enforcement, in the early part of this process, one of their concerns, and a valid concern, was that the overlap of one grade to the next was tremendous overlap. So we, in all of our renditions that we did, we tried to say, how do you minimize the overlap? Well, with people, and we also, we don't want people topping out too quickly. Well, all right. So we've got a dynamic here of let's create some continued growth in a range so people don't top out in 5 years, 6 years. So when I got a 10-year plan. And then also accommodate if they're in 10 years, get them to the next level and let them have some more growth. It's just hard not to have overlap of some kind.
Okay, so let's, if in the law enforcement, if we're talking about on an annual basis, if we move the structure 2%, then does that mean that when somebody moves from 1 year to the next, in effect, they're going to be looking at a 5% increase each year?
Correct.
So they're looking at a 5%. If the rest of the county is saying at a 3, their 3% is built in from one step to another. Then any structure increase they get in addition to that step, whereas in many instances, that structure increase only works if you're at the max.
Correct.
So that's one thing to remember from that standpoint. Until you get percent, if we were looking at a structure increase, then the law enforcement at each one of those steps will get not only the 3%, but they'll get in addition to that 3%, whatever the structure increase is. So that means that if you assume a 2% like you're recommending this year,
it's a pretty consistent number over history.
Then that means they would be getting 5% when everybody else is somewhere around 3.5, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Yes, Judge Whitley, correct. Our perception. There are a lot of things you're trying to solve for here that sometimes are conflicting. But our attitude was, and what we kind of said on the reason we recommended what we recommended was, if we get the starting rate at the 25th percentile, and you create a plan that, if you keep your nose clean, you do a good job, you're looking at the potential for at least a 3, and if the structure moves 3, 4, 5 for 10 years, you're probably maintaining your competitiveness at the 25th percentile. The other thing we looked at, and Robin and Ange have looked at this 50 Ways Till Sunday also. I don't believe anybody went from topped out to topped out in this transition. So what we said as an implementation recommendation, because you can't spend, I don't think, $9 to $10 million in a year, is move the person at the current structure to the next highest rate in the same grade they're in. So we have some employees that were in K, topped out, old plan, that might be moving to J or might be moving to I. So we're saying move to the closest step available in the new structure.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So you might
so
have,
they won't stay in K just because they were there.
Right. So
they
you might have
move
people
back.
in C going to A, because A is the next biggest rate above what they're currently being paid.
And then at their anniversary, they would move again.
And then they would move, right.
And get that 3%
Correct.
or
yeah.
that 3%.
Yeah. I think we did, and again, we looked at so many of these, I think every employee would get a step increase this year, in 2014.
And what are you recommending with regards to, if we do this, if we follow these recommendations, does everybody start over as far as it's all anniversary on October the 1st?
No, it's only the structure, only the new rate closest to their rate, the new rate that's highest, closest to their current step, would be October. So the new structure takes place October. Therefore, I'm off step. I'm at a rate that's not on that page. Okay, and I'm a 52. Okay, what's the next biggest rate on this scale that's on the page?
And that's
October.
what they go to October 1,
Right.
and then whenever their anniversary is,
they move to whatever that next step is.
And I know that there's just I don't think there's any way we solve this, but then it really is going to be bad to have been that employee that was hired in October. And it's going to be really great for those employees that were hired in November, or maybe it's September that really got. September employees are not going to be good. November employees or October employees are going to be real happy. And there's just, I don't know that there's anything.
I mean, there's just these moving parts that
Yeah.
you got to draw a line. To me, you got to draw a line. You got to draw a line somewhere in the sand and start.
Okay.
And also looking at the financial ability to do that. The cost for this was somewhere around $3.4 million.
Just for this particular.
Which is about 5.2%
So
for the
just-
first year.
just the-
start, and then move people on their date anniversary to the next one if there's one there. And for almost everybody, if not everybody, there is a next one. That's about 3.4 million, about 5.2% of the payroll in law enforcement. Law enforcement has looked at this. I think they have some comments, and HR's.
And they do have a public participation, whether we do that now or whether we want to.
Let's finish up the law.
And then one more page on law enforcement, and then maybe we,
Okay.
from a court perspective, if you don't mind. We just, on page 17, the things that we added to the survey this year, outside of just what do you pay people for base pay and steps and structure, shift differential, certification pay, education pay, and bilingual pay. Tarrant County does have shift differential today. Second shift is about at the 25th percentile. Third shift is maybe slightly below the 25th percentile of the market. There's nothing that the county does today for training. There is a report based, some people do it in the market. Half provide it at about $100 a month. They pay for certifications. Education pay, something similar. Not everybody does it, but when they do it, it's about $80 average premium. Bilingual, about half of the survey respondents do it, and on average when they do it, it's about at $100. And right now, Tarrant County law enforcement does not, other than shift differential, does not offer those programs. And then 19 is just a list of the participating cities and counties. And everything else after that is an appendices with a bunch of charts.
Okay.
Judge, before we ask for that audience participation, the Law Enforcement Salary Committee has been working with law enforcement, and we've tried to get to a point where that we have a schedule that's agreeable. And I would suggest that Ange, if you'll come up and at least talk to the court about that, and then let the audience participate.
Okay, could we take just a little bit of, maybe a couple-minute recess, and then we'll come back, and that way we'll do Ange, and we'll do public participation at the same time. That was a preliminary. We're almost back, so we'll let Commissioner Wynn get back in here.
Thank you very much.
Marcia, did you check and see if Commissioner Williams is about ready to? All right, let's go.
Okay. You should have also a single sheet of paper that looks like a spreadsheet. I'd like to talk about that for a few minutes. When we met with the law enforcement group last week, as Paul mentioned, they had some concerns about the chart that you see there, and understandably so to some degree. So some of the concerns they had were with the employee mapping. Specifically, I'm just going to give a random example. If somebody was a 51F today, they would be mapped to 51B in the future. That in and of itself was not necessarily problematic. What tended to be problematic at some point in the future was the step they would receive thereafter. In some cases, the value of that step was lower than our current scale would have been. So law enforcement expressed that concern to us, and we came up with the structure that you see in front of you there. Couple of notes about this structure. First of all, you'll see that it does address the market situation a little bit, or actually more than a little bit. What it doesn't do is get the starting salaries to P25 like Hayes structure does. We had to do a little trade-off with that in order to meet the budget. So it is significantly closer to P25 at starting salaries. It's not quite there, but it is closer. It also helps the compression issue that Paul mentioned with the promotions between salary grades. It is not as problematic with individuals topping out quickly as they promote up through the grades. What you also see on that one are higher end rates that will be at step A. And the employee mapping to that is if you're a step C in most structures today, that's the higher end rate, you'll be a step A on this new revised structure. Whatever the higher end rate is for your particular grade, that will become the step A on the new grade. And everybody who follows will do the same thing. So if your higher end rate was C, you'll be a step A on this scale. If you were a D, you'd be a step B, etc. You see the percentage differences between the grades. It's below, kind of in the middle of the page there. You see the difference between grades and some percentages. We did have to sacrifice 3% in order to make this work. So it goes from 4% at the beginning to 1.5% at the end.
So again, at the end, let's just say, for example, that if you were going from 9 to 10, from the 9 to 10 year mark, what you're saying is there's a 1.5% step.
Correct.
But again, if there happened to be, and I know there's no guarantee that where structures are going to be every year, but if the structure were to continue to be at the 2%, then that means that grade would see a 3.5%.
Correct.
Whereas back down under year one, from entry to year one, if we have a 2% structure, then that will equate to an actual 6%.
Correct.
For that particular
That's correct.
step.
So these are two options, the Hay option and our option. I know Bobby from the law enforcement group would like to address you about this subject. I think, I won't speak for him, but generally speaking, this option, this Tarrant County option, as opposed to the Hay option, is their preference. So I'll let him speak to that.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to, Bobby, come on up, and we'll let you kind of, have we covered most of what you want to respond to? I'm talking about, Bobby, I'm talking about you, all right? Okay.
First, let me hand out some copies. What I've handed you is what we, on the fly, put together from what Hay gave us last Thursday. And it's this is the first three steps, 51 through 53. And if you'll look, there are numbers that are in parentheses under 51 pay grade and the 52. Those would be pay cuts. And it's, while we overall like what Hay recommended, because it fixes many, many things as far as compression issues and getting people that when they come in they actually start at A, and extending the top out time period. We like all that. However, because especially if you look at, now this is, if somebody hires in July, August, September, these are the pay cuts they're going to take when the conversion happens.
Now, how do, I need you
From
to explain
October
when you
till
say,
that time period.
when you say pay cuts, no one's actually receiving a pay cut, are they? Nobody's actually making less money.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so explain.
If you
give me an
go, if you
individual.
look,
Okay.
if you look at this column right here going across,
Okay.
Which one is right
Which
here
is-
across? Tell us
sorry.
where you're at.
right here, and I'm sorry, I
That's
don't
the
have a
51
slide
to
for everybody.
51.
51?
The second group.
51 F to B. If you look, you would move from 34,673.60 to 34,340.80. That's $332 negative that you would have to live with until your review date.
Okay, I thought I heard Paul say that you were going to the next highest step from that standpoint. So why would that be the case? Robin, are you? Or Ange, or somebody coming up? Somebody come up and
I know I emailed it to Johnny, so.
So, Bobby, give your example one more time.
Okay, if you move from F in the current scale to B in the new scale that Hay has proposed,
Which grade?
it's under 51. And really, it's only the 51s and 52s that this affects. But you're taking a $332 loss until your review date when you would get your next step. So if
Okay.
you hired in late in the
So
budget
is the top
year,
row of 51, is that what they're currently making?
yes.
So I want to be sure I'm on the right row. I'm on the second set of 51s. I'm on the 51 that says under entry A, 33,380. And then on the second row, it says 33,342.40.
Right.
So if I'm going out to F in your example,
Which is the next column over to
well,
the right.
wait a minute, no, that's where I'm having a problem.
That's right.
Because is the top line what we're currently making, or is the top line?
The very top line going across is the current pay scale. NA means those are not being used. They're not
So on that
applicable.
first one, 51, you're saying that currently, right now, the E is making 33,300, and the A for the new system is 33,342.
Correct, which is
And you're
a
saying the F
positive.
And you're saying the F right now is making 34,673, and under the new structure, the B is going to make, let me get over here and just follow this and see if I'm
34,340.80.
34, well, that's not what this one's showing, so I got to figure out where we're.
You're looking at the
If you go to the, right above that, the B for the Hay recommendation is $34,340. That's where F would go to.
Okay, and so you're saying right now the G level is making 36,034, and they're proposing to take that to the C level.
Correct.
Which is 35, or even let's go to the one before that. Let's do the first one. You're saying F right now is making 36,673, And is that going to the B level, Ange?
34,673.
Is that going to the B level? And if so, then I thought you told us that nobody was receiving a decrease. I thought you said it was the next higher one.
So the October, so structure, if this happened, structure changes October. In October, you move from whatever step you were at, staying in the grade, to the next highest rate available on the scale, of the new scale.
Everybody will do that.
So everybody does get an increase that October. I think what he's saying, and he's right, he's done the math correctly, I mean, it's right, that in the old plan, or in the current plan, the next step would have been greater than the next step is in the recommendation from Hay.
Well, I'm not even saying that. I'm saying.
Wait a minute, Ange is going to clarify everything.
I'm not this tall. This is actually what Bobby's given you. It's got it mapped differently than what Hay intended. What their intention was that 51E mapped to A, as it says. The other, step F, if you're at step F, it would map to step C. So this is actually a step off what Bobby's given you. So if you look at, yeah, we skipped a step. We didn't map anybody to step B. So what he's given you is actually a step behind what Hay intended.
So the question then I'm going to ask, because I think this was his point, is that nobody come October the 1st, when everybody switches to different steps, and I'm assuming on October 1st, if we do a structure increase of 2%, no.
Randy, you're starting all over.
There won't be a structure in addition to this.
Right. This would be the new structure, or.
So this is the new structure.
Right.
Okay. So what you're saying then is that somebody in a step F will move to a step C.
Correct.
But in all of this, when we look at it, no one is going to move from their current step to a new step and take a reduction in pay.
That's correct.
Nobody.
Correct.
Nobody.
Correct. Yes.
Nobody.
Yes.
Well, that's not what Bobby said.
Well, I know it, but I think what she just said is you slipped one, Bobby. You should have slipped everybody over one.
Right.
Now, that was your big concern about this thing, was that somebody was going to take a cut in pay.
Correct.
I think it's just a
nobody.
misunderstanding.
You're right. I'll stand up here and admit defeat that I messed up.
No, I mean, that's fine. I mean, because this was what we wanted to be sure of, and
right.
And I appreciate you.
And I actually caught that in the later pay grades where they skipped steps to make the adjustment. And so looking at what it actually is that they're proposing, then yeah, I like what they proposed.
Good.
So, because it does solve those issues.
And that was, I mean, I appreciate you bringing the point up. Again, that was not, I don't think that was anybody's intent,
Right.
So we want to be sure we're right on that.
And, I mean, you got several options on the table here, and our only concern with what the HR gave us yesterday was the later steps in each pay grade, H through K, are getting smaller increases. Then these employees are your more tenured employees that have hung with the county through thick and thin, good and bad times, and now we're basically punishing them by only giving them smaller increases over what we expect you're going to give the rest of the county employees of 3 to 3.5%.
Well, but those that are maxed were maxed already, and they're going to continue to get the lump sum. Plus, if we give structure, they're going to get the structure part of that, whereas in the past we've not been as
well, that's something we haven't talked about in the committee. And with getting that just yesterday, we haven't really been able to come together and talk about it. But that may have a different light on it. That if there's a lump sum on top of that structure, that next step, then I'm kind of.
We have historically always given the lump sum to anybody who was maxed out or at their top step. From that standpoint, I believe.
Well, nobody's going to be maxed out by either one of these when it converts over. And I think the closest anybody would max out would be in 2015. That's the ones that moved from C to A. And with 53s, you know, they come in at D, so they'll move to A. So there's a 2-year span before they would max out. And then 51s, which is the majority of our law enforcement employees, you know, they're looking at 4 or 5 years before they would max out. So
let me. I need to be really clear as to what your recommendation is. Okay. My understanding is this.
Wait, which recommendation are we talking about?
The recommendation from the Hague Group.
Okay.
That's the one in the packet that we had. That's not the one on the handout that they. This is the one that wasn't dropped on the floor.
Okay.
Your recommendation includes 2 parts. 2 parts. The first part applies to all employee groups except law enforcement.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
So your recommendation for all groups, with the exception of law enforcement, is this: 3.5% merit increase and a 2% structural change.
Correct.
That only applies to the non-law enforcement employee
Correct.
groups. And then the second part of your recommendation includes the redesign step.
Correct.
Progression, okay? And within that recommendation, that part, applying to the law enforcement, we have 2 options. First option is your recommendation, and the second option is what HR presented,
yeah.
correct?
HR presented after initial feedback from law enforcement.
We actually put together a proposal. I'm not sure if you all have seen it or not. I know Commissioner Johnson has seen it. That we were told coming into this that because of the cost, we needed to look at a 3 to 5 year plan. We went back and put together a 4-year plan. And while some numbers are bigger, some are smaller on either end, basically when we returned that to the committee is when it seemed like everybody started getting in a rush and contacted Hay to put together their proposal, which we got Thursday. And then because what looked like when we, at a quick glance, looked like pay cuts to us, and we told HR about it, then they came back with this third proposal. So, but our thing is, the main thing with us is we just want to make sure there's no chance of anybody taking a cut in pay for even 1 week.
Okay. Right.
I mean, I cannot support that for my members.
And that's what
we don't blame you. We don't blame you.
Right. And so, in all fairness and be equitable for everybody, I would say at this point we like what Hay Group is recommending because it's a 3% increase across the board for every step and every pay grade. It keeps everything the same always, and we don't end up coming back in 5 or 6 or 7 years with the same issues we have today of compression between pay grades and people starting at higher steps because that's what we got to do to get them hired in. It just seems more equitable at 3% across the board. So, and last thing I want to say is I just really want to thank y'all, the court, for allowing us this opportunity whenever we've asked to come to the table and form a committee and be on the inside and a little bit more part of the process. We really do appreciate that and look forward and hope to get to do that again in the future. Also, on top of all this, we're still asking for certification pay at the $100 rate. That seems to be the norm for the ones that pay it, and I just ask that you sincerely consider that with all this other. So thank you.
And I believe the price tag on that is around $1 million.
900, almost $1 million, yes, sir.
Okay. So if y'all would like to continue now, Paul, with. Is there anything on any of the other areas? So that was it.
So we're going back then to Hayes' original proposal.
Well, I think that's what Bobby said. I think our choices are that or whatever. And I haven't really heard anything on this sheet. I think y'all were trying to do this Why don't one of the two of y'all?
I think our understanding coming into court this morning was that the group, the law enforcement group, was in favor of HR's recommendation as opposed to Hayes. So we might have one more conversation with them just to make sure everybody's clear and take it from there.
What's the difference in the cost? Paul said about 3.4 for his recommendation. What's the cost of your recommendation?
It's about $4,100 more, so it's about the same.
$4,100?
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay, as long as...
But what's the benefit? I mean, it seems like yours have a wider spread in the beginning and then it narrows.
Right.
I think that's exactly right. I think what this one says here, what their recommendation is it gives a little bit higher increase in the beginning. As you get more tenured, that increase goes from what under the Hayes is 3% down to either 2 or to 1.5. Probably, if you look at the vast majority of the employees, they're going to get a little bit higher increase. In the end, these folks are going to make a little bit less after 10 years than what these are, but they're going to get a little bit better increase in the beginning. And they start off a little bit higher.
What's the purpose of your recommendation? Are you trying to fix a problem?
Yes. Our initial discussion with the law enforcement group was a discussion of not the immediate mapping, so from 51E to 51A was fine. What the concern was the next step. So when somebody this year would have gone to step F, they might have gone in the future to step B. The concern was that F was a greater amount than B. So that was the purpose to us putting together this second structure, one of the purposes.
But that was based on an erroneous calculation, apparently.
No, I don't think it was.
Bob is nodding his head, yes.
We'll look at it.
Okay,
Let's
look at it again.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not trying to make any kind of a recommendation, I don't think.
Not today.
Thank you.
Fine. Okay, so all these other charts behind this is just simply study material if we want it.
Yes, sir. Majority of that, you've already seen it.
Right. Okay.
Members of the court, we have one additional item, and that is item D, which is legislative issues. And Mr. Mendez is here to give us some good news.
Sine die.
We can sleep safely again.
Yes, sir. You can time it, Judge. I'll take 30 seconds. Two bills passed yesterday. The joint resolution, which is the constitutional amendment, passed pretty handily in both houses. That will come before the voters in November of 2014. House Bill 1 was the process by which the money will be diverted from the funding stream that goes into the rainy day fund. That will be divided between the rainy day fund and transportation, subject to the determination of the appropriate floor for the rainy day fund. And instead of the LBB doing that, it's going to be a committee that is composed of 5 members of the House and 5 members of the Senate. They make a recommendation to the full body of the House and the Senate, and they can either concur with that recommendation or they can make changes. So the body gets a chance to change whatever the determination of the floor is. If there is no resolution of that floor in making changes or concurring, it defaults to what the committee recommends. And from that point
those
forward,
10 members are appointed by the Speaker and the Light Governor.
That's correct. Good. And that passed last night at about 9:30, and they sine-died, so we are done.
Before the governor could add anything else to the agenda.
I will be bringing back a full report to be received and filed by the court that breaks down all the bills that were passed during the regular and special sessions, broken down by department that are affected. That'll be for your receiving and filing next week.
Did we have 100% support from members of the Tarrant County delegation?
100% for the current resolution. I believe there were 3 dissenting votes on the House bill, and I think it was just reflecting the protest vote that I described last week.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all we have at this time.
On to November.
Then we will now recess our closed meeting, our open meeting, to proceed to close to address items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 08.
But we know what your problem is, Roy.
You can't.
Having returned from our closed session, we will now address the following matters.
Thank you. Under the district attorney's items, we're requesting approval of a proposal for a land planning and consulting expert witness as outlined in the court communique. We're requesting authorization for the county judge to sign the proposal and authorize the expenditure of $5,000 in the base of this proposal and set up a budget of up to $3,000 more in other expenses that may occur, so it'll be $8,000 in total, and we're requesting auditor certification of that on this document, and I'll have to go request that from her.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
If you can go to item G2 for me, please. We're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for Constable Precinct 8. We're estimating the impact of the general fund to be approximately $4,100, excluding fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Tina, before you go, on this out-of-class pay, do we need a court action on that, or is that just something we'll handle as it occurs?
No, policy allows the departments, now that we have discussed it with the courts, policy allows out-of-class pay for a 90-day period, and then after 90 days, we come back and ask for additional time from the court.
And that was effective July
18th, I believe.
18th.
Yes, sir.
So it'll be,
July.
will that actually be considered in the budget portion as we go forward, or?
I'm not sure how Debbie budgets that, but we'd be
Okay.
back August, September, October, at the end of October,
Okay, thanks.
near that.
That's all we
Tina,
have at this
could
time.
I see you when this meeting's over?
Yes, sir.
That's all we have at this time.
There being no further business, we're adjourned.